The worst part about my 28th birthday wasn't being abandoned in my own driveway with a suitcase in one hand and a list of chores in the other. It wasn't watching my family drive away to the beach vacation I'd spent a year planning and saving for. It wasn't even the way my sister Jade laughed when she handed me that list, like it was the punchline to a joke I didn't know I was part of. The worst part was the email. My name is Betrayal Smith. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a library assistant at Riverside Public Library. I live in a modest one-bedroom apartment in suburban California, where I bake sourdough bread every Sunday morning and give loaves to my neighbors. I've always been the quiet one, the helpful one, the one who shows up early and stays late, who loans money she can't afford to lose, who swallows her disappointment so everyone else can be comfortable. For 28 years, I thought that made me kind. Turns out, it just made me convenient. That morning, standing in the driveway watching my mother's SUV disappear around the corner, I felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart, that would come later. This was different. This was the sound of a carefully constructed belief system beginning to fracture. I didn't cry, I remember that distinctly. I just stood there, feeling the weight of my beach bag on my shoulder, reading the chore list in Jade's looping handwriting. Clean the gutters, organize the garage, water the plants, vacuum the living room. Then my phone buzzed, and everything I thought I knew about my family, about my entire life, shattered completely. Before we dive into how I set myself free, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this story. Where are you watching from? Drop your city below in the comments. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I was 7 years old when Marcus first called me his little helper. He was 14, tall and confident in that way older brothers are supposed to be. I worshipped him. When he'd ride his bike to the store, I'd run after him, my shorter legs burning to keep up. He'd always slow down eventually, grinning over his shoulder. "Come on, Bree, you got this." Marcus taught me how to change a bike tire, how to throw a curveball, how to sneak cookies from the jar without making the lid clink. He'd ruffle my hair and tell me I was the smartest kid he knew. Jade came along 4 years after me. She was the baby, the princess, all blonde pearls and dimples. Mom dressed her in pink frills while I wore hand-me-downs from Marcus. I didn't mind. Jade would toddle after me, calling my name in her baby voice, and something fierce and protective would bloom in my chest. I changed her diapers when Mom was tired. I read her bedtime stories. When she had nightmares, she'd crawl into my bed, and I'd hold her until she fell back asleep. Dad worked long hours at his accounting firm. Mom managed the household, which mostly meant managing us. They had a way of dividing labor that felt natural. Dad handled money, Mom handled emotions. I learned early to be low maintenance for both. "Brielle's so easy," Mom would tell her friends over coffee. "Never complains, always helps. I wish the other two were more like her." I remember glowing with pride when she said that. Every Sunday, we had family dinner. Mom's roast chicken, Dad's awful jokes, Marcus talking about whatever sport he was into that season, Jade performing songs from her school musical. I'd sit quietly, passing dishes, refilling water glasses, clearing plates. "You're the glue that holds this family together, Bree," Dad said once, patting my shoulder as I loaded the dishwasher. I held on to that sentence for years. When I was 18 and got into Berkeley with a partial scholarship, I needed $15,000 for the remaining tuition and living expenses. I'd saved $8,000 from my part-time job at the library. I needed my college fund to cover the rest. Dad called me into his office. The room smelled like leather and coffee. He looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers on his desk. "About your college fund, sweetheart. We've had some unexpected expenses. Marcus's business idea. You know how important it is to support family entrepreneurship. We had to make a temporary loan." "Temporary?" My voice was small. "Of course, he's going to pay it back, but in the meantime, maybe you could attend community college for a year or two, stay home, save money. Berkeley will still be there." I went to community college. Marcus's business, some kind of app that never launched, failed within 6 months. The money never came back. No one mentioned it again. I transferred to a state school eventually, worked full-time while taking classes, graduated with honors and $30,000 in student loans. Marcus still lived at home, rent-free. When I was 25, Jade got engaged. She wanted a spring wedding at the Rosewood Estate, $15,000 for the venue alone. Mom called me, her voice bright with excitement. "We're all chipping in for Jade's dream wedding. Even Marcus is contributing. Well, he will when he gets back on his feet. How much can you spare?" I'd just started saving for a down payment on a condo. I had $4,000 in my savings account. "I can do 1,000, I said. "Is that all?" The disappointment in Mom's voice made my stomach hurt. "Your sister's wedding only happens once, Brielle. Surely you can manage more than that." I gave her 2,000. Jade's wedding was beautiful. She looked like a fairy tale princess. During the reception, she gave a tearful speech thanking Mom and Dad for making her dreams come true. She didn't mention me. But that was okay, I told myself. I wasn't doing it for recognition. Family helps family. That's what I believed. That's what they taught me to believe. Looking back now, I can see the architecture of it, the way I was positioned as the foundation, while everyone else got to be the ornamental features, the way my needs were always later, while theirs were always now, the way my achievements were acknowledged with a pat on the head, while theirs required celebration. But at the time, I just thought I was being a good daughter, a good sister. I thought love was supposed to be sacrifice. I didn't know yet that I was the only one sacrificing.
The shift was so gradual I almost didn't notice. It started about 2 years before my 28th birthday. Small things. Marcus calling less often. Jade texting only when she needed something, a ride, money, someone to dog sit. Family dinners becoming more sporadic. "We're so busy," Mom would say when I asked about getting together. "You understand." I did. I always understood. What I didn't understand was why family events started happening when I couldn't attend. Jade's birthday dinner scheduled for a Wednesday evening when I worked late. Marcus's new apartment housewarming party on a Saturday I'd requested off months in advance for a library conference. "Oh, that's this weekend?" Mom said when I called, confused I hadn't been invited. "I thought you were busy." "Well, you can come by afterward if you're free." I showed up at 9 p.m. with a houseplant. The party was clearly winding down. Marcus seemed surprised to see me. "Hey, Bree, didn't think you'd make it." "I wouldn't miss it," I said, smiling. He took the plant without really looking at it. "Cool, thanks." I stayed for 20 minutes, standing awkwardly in his kitchen while his friends laughed at inside jokes I didn't understand. No one spoke to me. Finally, I hugged Marcus goodbye and left. On the drive home, I cried, but I couldn't articulate why. Around this time, family text chains started that didn't include me. I'd find out later, someone would mention the group chat, and I'd realize there was a conversation happening that I wasn't part of. "Oh, that's just the planning committee for Mom's birthday," Jade explained when I asked. "We didn't want to bother you with all the details." But I loved details. I loved helping plan things. They knew that. Money requests became more frequent and less apologetic. Marcus needed a short-term loan of $500. Jade's car repair was $800. Mom's timeshare maintenance fee was $300. "You're so good with budgeting," Dad said. "We knew you'd have it." I had it because I never went anywhere or bought anything for myself, because I packed lunch every day and cut my own hair, and wore the same 5 outfits in rotation. But they didn't know that because they never asked about my life. Conversations with my family became interrogations about them, monologues about their problems, requests for my resources. When I tried to share something, a book I loved, a promotion I was hoping for, a guy I'd gone on a date with, the subject would shift within minutes. "That reminds me," someone would say, and we'd be back to their story. I started keeping a journal. Nothing formal, just a private document on my laptop where I tracked things. Dates, amounts loaned, promises made. I told myself I was being organized, responsible. The truth was, some part of me was starting to keep score.
When I mentioned maybe traveling for my birthday, taking a week off and going somewhere warm, Mom's response was immediate. "That sounds lovely, honey. You should plan something for us. A family trip would be wonderful. You're so good at organizing." "I meant just me," I said carefully, "a solo trip." Silence. Then, "Oh, well, that seems lonely, but sure, if that's what you want." The guilt was immediate and familiar. Selfish. You're being selfish. So I planned a family trip instead. A beach house rental in Santa Barbara, a week in early March. I researched properties, compared prices, coordinated everyone's schedules. I put down the deposit, $1,200, and created a shared spreadsheet for everyone to chip in their portion. Marcus said he'd pay me back when he got his tax return. Jade said her portion would come from her next paycheck. Mom and Dad said they'd cover the groceries once we got there, so we'd call it even. I was still waiting for reimbursement when my birthday arrived. The night before, Jade called me, her voice bright. "Tomorrow's gonna be so fun. I can't wait for the beach. Oh, and Mom wanted to ask, can you pick up groceries before we leave? We're running behind on packing. I'll text you the list." "Sure. What time are we leaving?" "Early, like 7 a.m. We want to beat traffic." I set my alarm for 5 a.m. to hit the grocery store when it opened. I should have known something was wrong when no one confirmed the departure time. I should have questioned why Jade was so cheerful, but I didn't. I never did. March 15th. My 28th birthday. I woke at 5 a.m. to darkness and the sound of rain on my window. Got dressed in comfortable driving clothes, leggings, my favorite oversized sweater, sneakers, made coffee, checked my phone. No messages. The grocery store was empty at 6 a.m. I walked the aisles with Jade's list, filling 2 carts with snacks, breakfast items, sandwich supplies, the expensive cheese Mom liked, Marcus's favorite beer. $237. I loaded everything into my car, drove to my parents' house, pulled into the driveway at 6:45 a.m. The house was dark. Confused, I texted the family group chat. "Here, loading my stuff, ready when you are." No response. I waited in my car, engine running, heat blasting, checked my phone every 30 seconds. Nothing. At 7:15, the front door opened. Jade walked in pajamas, hair in a messy bun, coffee mug in hand. She was smiling. My stomach dropped. "Morning, birthday girl," she called, walking toward my car. I rolled down my window. "Why aren't you dressed? Are we running late?" She laughed, actually laughed. "Oh my God, Bree, you didn't actually think you were coming, did you?" The world tilted slightly. "What?" "The trip is for family bonding, for the Chore family. Mom and Dad wanted alone time with me and Marcus. No offense, but you're kind of a downer sometimes. We thought you'd bring the mood down." I couldn't breathe, couldn't process the words. "But I planned this trip. I paid for the deposit." Jade shrugged. "And we really appreciate that. Oh." She reached into her pajama pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Mom asked me to give this to you, just some stuff that needs doing while we're gone. The gutters are super clogged, and someone needs to water her orchids." She handed me a chore list through the window. I stared at it. My vision was blurring. "We're leaving in like 5 minutes," Jade continued, cheerful, oblivious. Or worse, not oblivious. "Should be back next Saturday. Oh, and happy birthday. Did you get anything good?" Behind her, the front door opened again. Mom, Dad, and Marcus emerged, carrying luggage, laughing about something. Marcus had my beach bag, the one I dropped off yesterday, with my swimsuit, sunscreen, books. They loaded everything into Mom's SUV. No one looked at me. "Jade, come on, we're going to hit traffic." "Coming." Jade turned back to me, still smiling, that bright, empty smile. "Thanks again for the groceries. You're seriously the best. See you next week." She walked away. I sat there, frozen, watching my family pile into the car, watching them laugh, watching Marcus take the front seat, Jade climb in back, watching Mom reverse out of the driveway. The SUV paused at the street. For 1 second, I thought someone would look back, wave, acknowledge me sitting there with tears streaming down my face. No one did. They drove away. And I sat in my car, in my parents' driveway, on my 28th birthday, holding a list of chores and shaking hands. The rain picked up. I watched it blur the windshield, turning the world into watercolor smears. I don't know how long I sat there. 10 minutes? 20? Time felt suspended. Finally, I drove back to my apartment, unloaded the groceries I'd bought for a trip I wasn't invited to, put them away mechanically. Milk, eggs, cheese, beer, all the things I didn't eat. I changed into sweatpants, made tea I didn't drink, sat on my couch staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. A notification. Email. From Mom's address. Subject line, FWD Spring Break Plans. My hands were numb as I opened it. It was an email chain, started 3 weeks ago. Mom, Dad, Marcus, Jade. Dad, I think we should do the beach trip without B. She always makes things complicated. Mom, agreed, but how do we handle the money? She already paid the deposit. Marcus, let her pay it. She never asks for stuff back anyway. Jade, LOL, true. Should we tell her she's not coming? Mom, let's just wait until the last minute. She won't make a scene. Brielle never does. Dad, good plan. What should we have her do while we're gone? The gutters need cleaning. Marcus, make her a chore list. That'll keep her busy. Jade, OMG, I'll do it. This is kind of funny. Mom, perfect. One more thing. Make sure she doesn't suspect anything. Keep her planning the trip. She's good at that stuff. I scrolled through 17 emails, each one worse than the last. Details about my college fund, borrowed permanently for Marcus's business, then Jade's wedding, then their family room renovation, my inheritance from Grandma Smith, redirected to Marcus's legal fees from a DUI I never knew about, family gatherings deliberately scheduled when I worked, the group chat I wasn't in where they joked about my boring life, my pathetic attempts at conversation, and the final email from Dad dated 2 days ago. Brielle never asks questions. She's easy. Let's keep it that way. I'm going to pause here for just a second. If this story is resonating with you at all, or if you've ever felt the pain of being misunderstood by the people who are supposed to love you most, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It really lets me know that sharing these hard stories is worth it. I read those emails 4 times. Then I read them again. Each pass revealed new cruelty, references to managing me, jokes about my thrift store clothes and my sad little apartment, mock concern that I'd never find anyone because I was too intense. They'd been laughing at me for years. I sat on my bathroom floor and threw up. When there was nothing left in my stomach, I lay on the cold tile and stared at the ceiling. My phone was still in my hand, those emails glowing like evidence of a crime. Hours passed. The light changed. Morning became afternoon, became evening. I didn't move. At some point, my phone rang. I looked at the screen through blurred vision. Mom. I answered without thinking. Brielle? Honey, the toilet in your dad's bathroom is running. Can you check the valve? There's a video on YouTube. I hung up. She called back immediately. I turned my phone off. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I opened a bottle of wine, a gift from a library patron months ago that I'd been saving for a special occasion, and drank the entire thing alone, in the dark. I wanted to stop feeling. It didn't work. The next morning, I woke up on my couch, fully dressed, head pounding, mouth dry, and for 30 blessed seconds, I didn't remember. Then I did. I called in sick to work. Called in sick the next day, too. spent 72 hours in my apartment doing nothing. Not eating, not showering, not sleeping properly, just existing in this numb, gray space. My phone was full of messages. Jade, did you water the orchids? Marcus, can you Venmo me $200? I'll pay you back when we get home. Mom, the gutters, Brielle, it's supposed to rain again. Not one of them said happy birthday. On day 4, my coworker Sarah texted, "Are you okay? Super not like you to miss work." I stared at that message for an hour before responding, "Family stuff." She replied immediately, "Want to talk?" I met her for coffee the next afternoon, showed her the emails. Sarah's face went from confused to shocked to furious in the span of 3 minutes. Brielle, what the fuck? I'd never heard her swear before. This is financial abuse. This is emotional abuse. This is, Jesus, this is cruel. I said quietly, "They're my family. Family doesn't do this." I started crying in the coffee shop. Sarah held my hand across the table while other patrons pretended not to notice. "What do I do?" I asked. "Do you want them in your life?" I thought about that. Really thought about it. "I don't know," I admitted. "They're all I have." "No," Sarah said firmly. "They're not. You have yourself. You have people who actually care about you. You have a whole life separate from them. They just convinced you that you don't." That night, I opened my laptop and looked at the journal I'd been keeping. 5 years of entries. Every loan, every broken promise, every dismissal. $47,000 in total. $47,000 I'd given my family, believing it was love. I also found something else, buried in my email archives. Formal loan agreements Marcus had signed for 2 separate business investments. My grandmother's will clearly stating I was to inherit her china collection and $15,000 in savings bonds. Text messages from Jade promising to pay me back next month for 18 consecutive months. Documentation. I hadn't been keeping score, I'd been building a case without knowing it. 2 weeks after my birthday, my family returned from the beach. Jade texted a photo, all of them grinning on the sand, sunset behind them. Caption, "Best family trip ever." Mom called that evening. "We're back. Can you come over for dinner Sunday? We have so much to tell you." "No," I said. Silence. Then, "Excuse me?" I said, "No, Mom, I can't make it." "Brielle Ann Smith, that's incredibly rude. We've been gone for a week and you can't make time for your family?" "I'm busy," I said, my voice steady. "Busy with what? It's not like you have a social life." I hung up. She didn't call back. Sunday came and went. No follow-up, no concern, just a text from Dad. "Your mother is very hurt." I didn't respond. Instead, I did something I should have done years ago. I called a lawyer. The law office of Rebecca Martinez was nothing like I expected. Warm woods, soft lighting, a coffee bar in the corner. She was 40-something, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for family law cases. I'd found her through a recommendation from the library's legal database. "Tell me everything," she said, gesturing to a chair. I told her, all of it. She took notes, asked questions, never once looked at me with pity. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "First, I need you to understand something. What you've described is a pattern of financial exploitation and emotional manipulation. Second, you have an exceptionally well-documented case." "Can I get my money back?" I asked. "Some of it, probably. The loans with signatures, definitely. Your grandmother's inheritance, possibly, depends on how it was transferred. The college fund might be harder without documentation of the original agreement." She outlined a strategy: formal remand letters, small claims court for amounts under $10,000, civil suit for the rest. She warned me it would be difficult, emotionally taxing, potentially relationship ending. I don't think I have a relationship to end, I said quietly. Then you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. I hired her that day. The demand letters went out 3 weeks later, one to each family member, itemizing what they owed with copies of signed agreements, text messages, email evidence. Marcus called me screaming, "You're suing me? Your own brother? What the fuck is wrong with you?" "Pay me back," I said calmly. "That's all I'm asking." "I don't have it." "Then we'll let the court decide how you can make payments." He called me names I won't repeat, told me I was destroying the family, said I was being vindictive, petty, cruel. I hung up and blocked his number. Jade sent a long text about how hurt she was, how she couldn't believe I'd betray her like this, how I was ruining her reputation. I blocked her, too.
Mom and Dad showed up at my apartment unannounced. I didn't let them in. "We need to talk about this," Dad said through the door. "As a family. Talk to my lawyer." "Brielle, please, we can work this out." "You had years to work it out. You chose not to." "We didn't realize you were keeping track." Mom's voice was shrill. "We thought you were helping because you wanted to." "I did want to," I said, "and you took advantage of that. How dare you!" I walked away from the door. Eventually they left. The legal process took 3 months. In that time I did other things. I started therapy, real therapy, with Dr. Chen, who specialized in family trauma. She taught me words for what I'd experienced: scapegoating, triangulation, gaslighting. She helped me understand that being easy wasn't a virtue they appreciated. It was a weakness they exploited. I joined a support group for adult children of narcissistic families, sat in a circle of strangers, and heard my story reflected back at me a dozen different ways. I made new friends. Sarah introduced me to her book club. I started saying yes to invitations, stopped making myself small to fit into other people's comfort. I got a promotion at the library, children's programming coordinator. More responsibility, better pay, work I actually loved. I took up pottery. Terrible at it, but it felt good to make something with my hands, to shape clay into forms that sometimes collapsed, but sometimes held. I started baking bread for myself instead of everyone else, experimented with flavors: rosemary and olive, cinnamon and raisin, chocolate and cherry. Every Sunday morning I'd pull a fresh loaf from the oven and eat a slice while it was still warm, butter melting into the crumb. Those moments, alone in my small kitchen, eating bread I'd made, accountable to no one, felt like freedom. The court date was in June. My family didn't show up. Their lawyer presented a settlement offer, $12,000 total, paid over 2 years, in exchange for me dropping all claims and signing a non-disclosure agreement. Rebecca looked at me. "Your call." I thought about it. Thought about the principle, the money, the closure. "Counteroffer," I said. $20,000, paid within 6 months, no NDA, and a written apology from each of them acknowledging what they did. We went back and forth for an hour. They wouldn't budge on the apology. "Then no deal," I said. Eventually, they agreed to $18,000, paid quarterly, no admission of guilt. I took it. Not because it was fair, it wasn't, but because I was tired, and I wanted to be done. The first check arrived in July. I deposited it and booked a trip to Greece. Alone. For 2 weeks in September, I walked through ancient ruins, swam in impossibly blue water, ate food I couldn't pronounce, and didn't think about my family once. I came home different, lighter, free. It's been 6 months since my 28th birthday, since that morning in the driveway, the chore list, the email that changed everything. I haven't spoken to my family since the settlement was finalized. They've tried. Birthday texts that I delete unread, voicemails that I erase, a Christmas card that went straight into recycling. Mom sent a message through Sarah. "We just want our daughter back." But here's the thing they don't understand. I was never their daughter in the way that word is supposed to mean.
I was their resource, their safety net, their convenient solution. And I'm not that anymore. People ask if I miss them. Sometimes I do. I miss the version of them I thought existed. I miss the family I believed we were. But I don't miss who I had to be to maintain that illusion. The other day I was baking bread, a new recipe, sourdough with herbs from my small balcony garden, when I realized I was humming, actually humming, content and alone and completely at peace. That's when I knew I'd made it to the other side. There's this moment in the healing process where you stop waiting for them to understand, stop needing them to apologize, to acknowledge, to change. You realize that your peace doesn't require their participation. That's where I am now. I have a life they never bothered to learn about, a job I love, friends who actually know me, hobbies that make me happy. I'm dating someone kind who thinks my quietness is calming, not boring, who wants to hear about my day, who says I love you and means I see you. My apartment is filled with things I chose, books, plants, pottery that's slightly lopsided but mine. Every Sunday morning I bake bread. Sometimes I share it. Sometimes I don't. Both are okay. If you're reading this and seeing yourself in my story, if you're the one who always helps, always understands, always sacrifices, I want you to know something. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Your love should be reciprocated, not exploited. And walking away from people who hurt you isn't betrayal, it's self-preservation. The worst part about my 28th birthday wasn't being left behind. It was finally understanding that I'd been left behind my entire life. But the best part? Realizing I could leave too. And I did. Have you ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you? How did you rebuild trust? Share one moment in your healing journey that changed everything. This was another story from Revenge Room, where we turn pain into purpose and betrayal into balance. Please don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next transformation.